In this demo, we are going to explore using the before and the after pseudos to introduce content into our layouts through the CSS. So we won't be adding content directly to the structure, directly to the HTML. All right, so let's go to W3 Schools and let's just take a look at an example of a before pseudo. So we have a p tag, : before. So what's happening here is this style will add content before the p tag begins to draw. Okay, and what we're going to do is use the content property and introduce this text. So let's go ahead and try it, and you will see that here's p : before content, read this. We have 3 p tags, and then when you look over at the example, you will see read this added. So if we change read this to something like see me now and run, you can see that see me now has been added to the beginning or before the other content begins to draw. Now just a note, and they spell it out here also, but if you're working on an older browser, a doc type must be declared, and you must use the old : CSS2 syntax. So it would be : before instead of : before. So a single colon is CSS2, a double colon is CSS3. So a single colon will still work in newer browsers, but it really isn't 100% correct. All right, let's go now and let's take a look at our HTML, and we're going to go down to our lyrics because I want to introduce a graphic here with this first p tag. So let's just use a class. So class equals, and let's call this small rocket 1. Okay, and we're going to add a second image, and I should mention with this strategy also of before and afters to introduce content. In this p tag we have type. We could add images inside this p tag. We could add background images inside this p tag. But now with the before and the after, it also gives us the possibility of adding an image before the element draws and adding an image after the element draws. So let's go down and let's find this area here. So in this p tag, and we will introduce a class, and this will be equals, and we'll call this one astronaut. Okay, now let's go over to our CSS, and I'm going to point out that we are working in the section, okay, and then our p tags are in the section. Now notice the section, the position is set to relative, and in this section, the p tag for this section, we're not setting a position, so it will get the default static position. So what I want to point out here is when we write our rules, we're going to use absolute position for these for this content that we're going to have show up. And because we're using absolute position, they're going to look for their first parent with relative position set. So what that means is the upper corners, or I should say just the corners of our section, will be the positions which we will use to base where we're going to move our elements from. Okay, so let's go ahead and scroll down here, and after section P, let's just create a new rule, and we're going to target that first class we just made, and that was dot small rocket. I think it was small rocket. I already forgot. Let's go back and look. So it was small rocket 1. small rocket 1. And what we're going to do is, let's go ahead and use that P tag in front of small rocket 1. So we're going to make sure it's P tag and our class inside that P tag, and then colon, actually go to the end here, get this right, colon before. Then we'll add our curly braces like so. We will now set our position, and our position will be absolute. We're going to set a top position. Let's just, for right now, just use 0 rem. And then our left will be 0 rem also. Now let's add our content. And what we're going to do is use a URL and then a parentheses. And before I forget, we'll make sure we have our semicolon. Let's just move this up a little bit. Now, this is a fairly long link, so I already have it. So I'm just going to copy paste. And there is my image. That kind of messed up the formatting, so I'm just going to move this up. I'm going to let it kind of be off like that. This is better than having the space. And now we have our small rocket on the before, using the before pseudo, so it should begin to draw at the beginning of the P tag. Now it's absolutely positioned, so it's going to likely base itself off of the section, yes. So let's go ahead and save, and let's update our page. And let's see, there's our image. Okay, well, that's great, but I want my image up here, and I want to rotate the image a little bit, and I want to scale the image. I don't want it as this large, and I don't want to necessarily go back to a graphics package and modify this art. So we can just do this through, we can do that through the CSS. So let's go after our content here, and let's use the transform, and we'll go ahead and set the scale, and we'll first call out the X, and 1.0 would be 100%. I want this 50%, so let's go 0.5, then comma. Now we need the Y scale, so this will also be 0.5. And keep in mind, I'm scaling this to 50%. If you had 1.5, then it would be 1.5, it'd be half again larger. Okay, if it was 2.0, it'd be twice the scale. So you can scale up or down on the X and the Y. Now I have scale and X and Y. We could do scale X and then just do our value, and then we could have scale Y and call out our value. But I'm going to take care of them both here together. And then we have our semicolon. So then we'll save. We'll take a look. And we should see that our rocket is smaller. Now I'm going to do two things. I want my rocket to be up here, where I have the cursor bouncing around, and I want to rotate my rocket a little bit. So let's go ahead and say we want the top to be -10 rem, and I want the left to be -10 rem, like so. And then we'll just sort of make a matrix, not just sort of, we will make a matrix out of our transform scale. And what we're going to do is add the rotate, like so. And I'm going to rotate -15 degrees. So we'll have our little rocket rotate anti-clockwise 15 degrees. So we'll go ahead and save. And we'll update. and we should have our rocket moved up and slightly rotated. Now let's go ahead and add another image, but we will use the after pseudo. So I'm going to save a little bit of time here and just copy one we already have. We'll paste. We'll now change our class name to that second class we created when we first started, which is astronauts. And we're going to change the before to the after pseudo. So this will draw after this p tag draws, or after it closes. I'll leave the position at absolute, and let's try 10. So we're going to move it down from the top, and instead of left, let's position this from the right side, the upper right corner of our section. So let's go right, and I'm going to go with a -3 rem, and then we have to change our image here. So let's just update our image name to astronaut. And I know the scale of this image. I want it to be a little bit larger. I don't want it to be 100%, but larger. And then the rotate will be fine. And so we have P astronaut : after. We should be good. Let's go ahead and save. And then we will refresh our page. And we should have our rocket and our astronaut now positioned around our text, but we're doing so directly through the CSS. We're targeting specific elements, and then we're telling these images, or we're having these images draw before the element begins or after the element ends. So it's a really cool way to be able to get extra images on your page and not have to go into the HTML itself. We're just using the CSS to add more content to our page.